Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the first Sedra of the new book of Bemidbar that is literally translated as In the Wilderness, but as the book is referred to is Chumash HaPekudim. This is the other name that the rabbis give it, and it's translated as the Book of Numbers. And the reason that we're told it's the Book of Numbers is there are in this book a few instances of censai that are taken, counting of the people that are taken, and that because this seems to be a recurring theme, that one explanation is that this is why it's called the Book of Numbers in the English translation. But the theme of this, I will refer to as Chumash HaPekudim, is actually something very, very different and not helped at all by this English translation of Numbers, although I can see why they arrived at that word. But the concept of the Chumash HaPekudim is something that fits in so perfectly with the fact that we read this Sedra prior to Shavuot. This is how we go into Shavuot, and the traditional reasons that are given is that even though it doesn't talk about the actual giving of the Torah at Har Sinai, which we read about in the book of Shemos in the Sedra of Yisro, but it is referring to the wilderness, it's referring to a place that is devoid of habitation, that a place that is conducive to humility. It's very hard to have an ego and be worried about possessions in a desert when actually what you really need most desperately is water. And not coincidentally, Torah is compared to water. And these are the very appropriate reasons that are usually suggested for the fact that we read this consistently before Shavuot. But there's actually a fascinating connection between this unusual, the sort of the second name, if you like, of the book that the rabbis use, Chumash HaPekudim, and the theme of Shavuot. And I think that this is also leads us into the kind of nation that we are and has such relevance, as always, for us in our current situation as we dedicate this learning to the safe and speedy release of all of the hostages in Gaza and the safety and success of all of the soldiers in the IDF. So if we look at the opening words of the Sedra, this is where we find the instruction for the first census of the people in this book. Chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. Vayadaber Hashem el Moshe Bemidbar Sinai, and Hashem spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai, Ohel Moed, in the tent of meeting, Be'echad lachodesh hasheni, on the first day of the second month, which is the month of Iyar that we are currently in, B'shana Hashenis, in the second year, that would be after the Exodus from Egypt. Letzetzom me'eretz Mitzrayim, they after their exodus from the land of Egypt, saying, Su'u es Rosh kol adas b'nei Yisrael. And in the Gutnik Chumash, it is translated as, take the sum of the entire congregation of the children of Israel. And then it carries on, Leves avosom, according to the house of their fathers, Bemispar Shemos, according to the number of the names, Kol Zochar Legulgolosom. All who Kol Zochar Legulgolosom take a head count by counting each person's half shekel donation by keeping account of the names. That's the translation plus midrashic interpretation as well. And we look at Rashi on this pasuk, and Rashi says, "Vayadaber b'midbar Sinai be'echad lechodesh mitoch chibosom lefonov mone osom kol sha'a kshe'otzu mimitzrayim manaon ukshenoflu be'egel manaon leda minyan hanosarim kusheba lahashres shchina aleihem manon." So Rashi says, out of the love of the people from Hashem towards the Jewish people, that Hashem counts them after they leave Egypt. He counts them after the event of the Egel Hazav, the golden calf, and he counts them when they come to being with the divine presence, when the Mishkan was erected, and he counted them on the 1st of Iyar. And this counting is something that is quite unusual, because we have specific references in the Tanakh where counting is something that is discouraged, if not actively prohibited. And the on the one hand, we have this fact that we don't actually count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 when it comes to people. This is a tradition. We will often, there's a special posuk from Tehillim, Hoshia es amecha uvarach es nachalesecha urem v'nasem ad ha'olam, that this a posuk with 10 words, and people, if they need to have a count, if you're going on an outing and a teacher doesn't want to count the exact number of people on the bus, then they will say this posuk and keep a record of how many times they've repeated it, and then they'll be able to work out if everybody, if they've got the right number of people, if the numbers tally. But generally, counting is something that is considered, whether it's as a form of bragging, look how much I've got, look what I can do, and this is something that is not considered a modest and not a practice that's adopted or approved of. But on the other hand, we have Hashem is counting as a sign of love. And I think that we can really get to grips with that by understanding that when human beings count, you can have the Forbes rich list, you can count how much money you've got, you can have, if you look at, for example, a way an army counts its people, there are foot soldiers. They literally count the boots on the ground, and we can see, even though technology has given us huge advances, and modern warfare is not necessarily like it was, even 80, 90 years ago, let alone hundreds of years ago. Yet we've seen recently how the most advanced technology is sometimes actually not going to be sufficient, and you will need boots on the ground, you will need your foot soldiers. So that kind of concept of counting when it comes to an army, when it comes to a navy, we'll often think of the idea all hands on deck, that you'll need the hands to put up the sail, and any yachts people will be more au fait with the kind of jobs and the vocabulary that's used. Man the rigging, and sort of the captain standing on the ship's deck, whatever. Again, it's about hands, it's about the physical number of people that you have in order to be able to carry out these tasks necessary for the smooth running of the ship. But when this idea, where we see, when it's the overall book is called Chumash HaPekudim, it's not Chumash HaMisparim, it's not the book of numbers. It's using the word Pakod, Pei Kuf Daled, and this is used in different places in the Torah. And we'll, for example, remember when Sarah is told that she's going to have a child at the age of 90, in her very advanced years. Hashem pakad et Sarah. Hashem remembered, took a reckoning of Sarah. And a pikadon, for example, is like some kind of guarantee, of a surety that you give as it's an assurance, it's a form of assurance, it's a form of a connection that is given, that is something indicative of something that's precious, something of value, and it's been given as a guarantee in a certain situation. And so what we have when we are connecting the concept of Chumash HaPekudim to the fact that we read it before Shavuot, is that when Hashem counts, and that's another point that is actually made in the pasuk that I read out. It said Mispar Shemos in pasuk base. It says Lemishpachosom, Levesavosom, Bemispar Shemos, according to the number of their names. Now, normally, when you count a number, you don't bother with the names. You just want to know the sum total. When Hashem counts a number, he does it according to the number of their names, because a name is not just a name. A name is a person's essence. A name, the word name in Hebrew is shem, and that shin mem, and those are the central words, the central letters of neshama, because the essence of a person's neshama is conveyed in their name. And so when Hashem, unlike human beings, is taking a pikadon, is looking at all of the people in Bnei Yisrael, in the nation of Israel, it's not just a number. Each and every one has a unique mission. Each and every one has their own unique soul. And this is the kind of we're also seeing that in the expression in the beginning of the Pasuk, the second Pasuk of the first chapter, Se'u es Rosh kol adas b'nei Yisrael. Literally, lift up the head of the entire congregation of the children of Israel. And so this doesn't translate into English very elegantly or make much sense in English, but there's this idea of uplift, because when Hashem is doing the Pekudim, then we are uplifted. We are made to realize our unique value as far in Hashem's reckoning. We are part of that. And I think this is another extremely appropriate reason to read this particular, the beginning of this book, this Sedra, just before we go towards Matan Torah, just before we celebrate Shavuot, we celebrate the festival of receiving the Torah, because every single person counts. We've been counting from the second night of Pesach through to the eve of Shavuot, and we are in this rhythm of understanding that every single, when we remember the Midrash, that the soul of every member of the Jewish nation, including people who convert to Judaism, was present at Har Sinai, was present at the receiving of the Torah. And there's this idea that, yes, those who were physically present were there bodily, but the souls of those yet to be born were also present. And this is based on a verse in Devarim, chapter 29, that we are all obligated by this bris, by this accepting of the Torah, because we were all there. Why were we all there? Why does even the souls of people who have not yet been born, what is the Medrash trying to tell us? And I think that the message is that we are all precious in the eyes of Hashem. We are all serving a purpose. The purpose that we have is connected so integrally with our receiving of the Torah, with our becoming a fully paid up member of the nation of Israel, to spread the word of Hashem, to bring the values of the Torah and the light of the Torah into this world and spread it and radiate it outwards. And what better way could we go into the festival of Shavuot? And I would like to actually finish with a quote from a book of Divrei Torah on the Sedra called Focus, by Nosson Slifkin and Yehuda Brea. And they say in this essay on the Sedra of Bemidbar, the magnificence of the Jewish nation is created by the harmony of individual Jewish souls, no two of which are alike. And I think that all of this magnificent nation is standing at the foot of Har Sinai as we go towards receiving the Torah. And please God, we should merit to reach the levels that we reached as a nation on that day in the year 2448, where we actually physically received the Torah. But keep that inspiration, keep that light shining, and please God, all our tefillahs should be answered for the good of all of our nation, as individuals and as a collective. and wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. Thank you very much for listening.